let's talk about my top 10 books of the year so far. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the top 10 books of the first half of the year. And I have quite the list. It's a very strange list because I didn't anticipate a top 10 of mine featuring some of these books like ever. And my reading tastes this year have been a little different. Mental health reasons, just general stress have made me gravitate towards things that I typically don't. But today, let's just get into the list. I'm gonna do these in no particular order because do I have a best book of the year? You guys have already seen my mid-year freakout tag. You know it was Empire of the Damned. So we can start off with that one. Empire of the Damned is the sequel to Empire of the Vampire. It is epic dark fantasy featuring vampires, and I love it because this story has such a wide scope. And just because there are vampires in it, it's just like any other fantastical race that has been developed in this story. Like, you get to know elves and others, you get to know witches and others, but this just happens to be vampires. And I love the setup of it because, I mean, I don't know what it is about the trope of an older character telling their life story. Bloodsong does this, Name of the Wind does this. There's a couple others that do this, and I love that way of storytelling. I don't know what it is about it. It's so good. In the second book, we have a dual POV, which I really appreciated. I liked the fact that someone else has come in to either validate our main character's story or kind of clash with our main character's story. And our main character is kind of telling three different timelines in this. It's the current timeline where he's being interrogated, his past, what led him to becoming a Silver Saint, I believe that's what they're called, and the search for this Holy Grail, something that will end the darkness that has taken over this world. That's another thing that I love about Jay Kristoff. So we have Nevernight, which means we never have night. And then we have a world of complete darkness. He plays with those elements of storytelling very, very well. I really enjoy that in his world building. But Jay Kristoff is a favorite author of mine. I love his macabre way of telling stories. He is crass, so that is something that you need to know going into it. There's a lot of cussing, there's a lot of sex, things like that. So if that's not your cup of tea, then probably not Jay Kristoff, but I'm sure you've heard of that before picking up Empire of the Vampire or Nevernight. Next up would be Kagan the Damned, and oh my gosh, I love this book so much. It is very dark, very dark. So be aware of that whenever you are thinking about picking this up, and look up content warnings because I was not prepared for how dark this was. And so reading some of it, I was kind of shocked. And I think that's because I've read Jonathan Maberry before, but what I read from him was a young adult zombie story. And so right out the gate, there are some horrific things happening in this story. But we have Kagan, who is a hero of his time. He's a protector of the realm, and something awful happens. This Witch King comes in, destroys everyone in the palace, and he's not there to protect them. And so his story kind of starts there where he realizes he's too late. He can't do anything about what's happened. This Witch King has taken over, and Kagan gives up. He says, all right, the gods have forsaken me. I'm done. Bye-bye. And so he goes on a drinking binge and falls into a pit of darkness in his own mind. And whenever a rebellion starts to come up, they seek out Kagan because they know he's this esteemed warrior. They know that he has inside knowledge of the castle and all of that stuff. And he gets recruited to this rebellion. He's reluctant, very, very reluctant to do all of this because he's like, the Witch King destroyed everybody. What's one man supposed to do? Like, you guys are crazy. And so it's amazing. I love Kagan. I always love a really good anti-hero. And he is the hero at the beginning of the story, or was supposed to have been the hero at the beginning of the story. And he's very much an anti-hero by the time we get to the meat of his story. And I just thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. I do have Son of the Poison Rose. Like, I'm staring at it. I want to read it so badly. And I'm trying to get through my current TBR, and that's one that is calling. And then, of course, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've talked about this a lot in the last 6 months, or however long it's been since I've read it. But we have a Sherlock and Watson type story and set in a fantasy world. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I am a big Sherlock fan. Any iteration I've seen of Sherlock, I've really enjoyed. The books can be a little dry. They're not quite as witty as the reimaginings of Sherlock are, but I do still love the books too. And I just, the Sherlockian character in this is female, and she is a riot. She was so fun to, like, her parts were so fun. And then we have this guy who can retain memories. And so she sends this guy on all of these quests because she doesn't want to go. And he reports back to her, yet she's the one who figures out the mystery and all that stuff. But since he has perfect recall, that's one of his powers, she uses that to gain the information that she needs. But very much a Sherlock and Watson type story. But then we have the Leviathans, and the Leviathans attack the city. We have rings in the city, and the inner ring is where obviously the rich people live. The outer rings are very much more affected by the fact that the Leviathans are trying to enter in this city, and it felt very Attack on Titan. If you've seen Attack on Titan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, these creatures come from no one really knows where to attack the city, and there are defenses against these Leviathans. There are defenses against the Titans, but no one really knows where they came from. They just know that they can't reach the inner city, otherwise everything will be destroyed. And so there's this eerie factor of the Leviathans attacking that kind of overlays a lot of the story. So a lot of the tension is there from the Leviathans, and then you have the murder mystery. It's just really, really good. And I think Robert Jackson Bennett is really good at blending genres. I've loved everything I've read from him. And so the horror elements in here are good. The fantasy is good. The murder mystery is really good. And so, yeah, I mean, Robert Jackson Bennett, I'm probably going to be buying whatever he releases next. Hopefully it's the next book in this series. And then I read a YA fantasy called Blood Heir, and I was shocked. So someone sent me this as a Christmas present, and I was like, okay, cool. It was on my wish list, so I wasn't like surprised that it was sent to me. But they were like, oh my gosh, this is so good, you need to read it. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's a YA fantasy. How good can it be? I gave the first book 5 stars. It was so incredibly good. So well thought out. The politics were so well thought out. There is a little bit of like a flirtation in these books, but it is not like a legitimate romance. But I loved everything about this book. It's so hard to talk about because the things I really want to talk about would be spoilery. I do have the book right here, so I can at least tell you what the back of the book says. A princess with a deadly gift, a con man with no past and no future, an empire spiraling into chaos. It's time to choose a side. So yeah, I loved this book so much, so much. And again, we do have a girl who, she's princess of this land, but she ends up with this magic she's not supposed to have. And instead of facing the consequences of what she's done, because she's done something, she decides to fake her own death. Everybody thinks that she's dead. However, when the empire starts to fall into chaos, she comes back and she wants to right the wrongs that her death seemed to set in motion. And so she goes to the jail to get this con man's help. And he's like, okay, let's make a deal. He doesn't know who she is, but he's willing to help for a price. And their story ends up being a really good one. And she gets involved in so many other schemes along the way, yet she is trying to get back to her brother and the kingdom that he's letting fall to ruin. And we find out a lot of different things along the way of why this is the case. But absolutely fantastic book. Okay, I have not stopped talking about this book, and I'm going to shout about it until everybody reads it. The Stardust Girl by Yumi Kitasai, I think is how you pronounce that name. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So I read two books back to back that were just absolutely amazing. The other book won't be on here because I gave it a 4-star, but The Stardust Grail was fantastic. It's everything I love in sci-fi. We have a heist, we have found family, we have an epic scope to this heist. Like, it's not just about one person or one item. There's a whole lot going on in here. And it turns into very much like a space opera battle to find this thing. And so many tensions arise while they are after this grail. And our main character realizes why everyone is after it. She realizes what it means to the people that she cares about. She also understands what it means to humanity, and she has to make a choice. And so I loved seeing all of the internal battles, the external battles. I love the found family in here. I love how we have an alien and our main character who are just best of friends. And then they pick up this ragtag group of people and she's like, I don't trust you guys. But then they come to find out that they really can rely on each other, and that, you know, there's just so much to love about this book. But I like this book almost as much as Project Hail Mary. I love this friendship almost as much as I like the one in Project Hail Mary. And if you guys don't know, Project Hail Mary is my favorite science fiction book of all time. So I'm saying that this one is almost as good. And then I read a mystery thriller / horror that I was not expecting to make this list, but Murder Road by Simone St. James. I do like mystery thrillers that have a paranormal twist to them, and this one definitely does. I did not realize that this was more horror leaning than it was mystery thriller, but it's obviously a mystery thriller because we are trying to solve what the mystery is behind this horrific thing that's going on. But Simone St. James is quickly becoming an auto-buy author for me. I love The Broken Girls. I love Murder Road. We have a couple in this story who both have PTSD. They recently got married. They decide to take a trip. They're broke, so their honeymoon is not to any fancy place. It's just some place that they could get a good deal. And they diverge from the road only to figure out that no one really knows why they diverged from the road. And things start happening, and where we understand that this is a common occurrence in this place. People get called to this road for any number of reasons, but what happens on this road is someone is always killed. Well, they are driving down this road and a girl is off to the side. They figure out that she needs help. They stop, figure out she's been stabbed, rush her to the hospital, only to become the murder suspects themselves. So it was really good. It was really good. I think it's probably in my top 5 murder mysteries that I've read, or mystery thrillers that I've read. But even though that's not my genre, I still really, really enjoyed this one. Okay, and since I have been in a romantasy mood for so long, I have to put some romantasy on this list. And the first of those would be When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. There's a lot of people who don't like Sarah A. Parker's writing, and I'm like, I love it. I love it. It's very flowery, very flowery. So if you're not into that, I can totally see why you wouldn't be into this. It has some pacing issues where things really, really slow down. And I talked about how it has dramatic rise and fall of action, and that is a pacing issue where you can't keep it maintained throughout the story. I don't mind that. And I think this is because I play video games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I'm used to the rise and fall of action and them being quite dramatic, because you play the game, you get into it, you're fighting, you're going on this quest, all of that stuff, and then you go back to Skyhold and you talk to the characters. So it's like really dramatic rise and fall of action. That's in every video game that I play. So I don't think it bothers me as much as it bothers other people. However, we have this great story where dragons, when they are at the end of their life cycle, will shoot up into the sky, fly into the sky, and become a moon. And in this story, one of the moons has fallen, and there's a mystery surrounding all of that. Our main character is tied to the mystery, yet we don't know how. And our main male character is also tied to this mystery, and we don't know how. However, we do get dual POVs. We have multiple timelines where this is a journal of someone that we are unaware of, and then our main character's POV. I really, really enjoyed the characters in this, and I really enjoyed the world building in this. However, the writing does like leave something to be desired. However, the plot of this book is quite slow. So if you're a plot-driven reader like myself, you might not love it quite as much. I did. I liked the characters enough to give this, I think, 4.5 stars. And my new favorite character has made an appearance. If you've watched my mid-year book freakout tag, Rave, I talked about Rave in that, and she is from When the Moon Hatched. And then I read A Feather So Black. Loved this book again. I love things that have to do with the Fae. We have a Fae king, and we have a weird setup where our characters can only enter the Faeland once a month. So I do think that gives it a little bit of pacing issues. Again, a 4.5 for me. This is not a 5-star, 4.5. And we had something that happened kind of midway through the book that it was a trope I don't like. So I had some issues there. However, I loved this book. I loved the fact that our main character had a lot of trauma, and only realized the trauma once she was in the Faelands. Like, she was groomed. She doesn't realize that that was what happened to her, and taught to love her mother, love her country above all else, and to love her sister, the girl whose place she took because she's a changeling. And then she gets sent on a mission to bring her sister back. And all she wants is to make her mother happy. All she wants is to make her sister happy. And in doing so, she has to give up the love of her life to her sister to be married off when she returns. She's willing to do this for the love of her mother, for the love of her country. Yet things start to happen once she is away from her mother, once she is back in the Faelands, and things change dramatically throughout the course of the book. She realizes that her sister is not who she thought she was. She realizes that she probably shouldn't be giving up her one true love for someone else, and then she encounters the Fae King, and things ensue from there. I thought it was very good. And then I read Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Okay, let me just say this. Carissa Broadbent can do no wrong. I've determined this. Carissa Broadbent writes romantasy in exactly the way I want to read it. And Slaying the Vampire Conqueror is no different. Enemies to lovers, we have, and it's funny because these are more like reluctant allies, but they genuinely are enemies. Only because of what they've been told, though. It's not because they hate each other. It's because their factions hate each other. And our main character is part of a group of seers who tells her that she needs to murder this king, this conqueror that's come in. Yet she's an orphan of war. And so she's like, well, if he's going to take down that dude, I might just help him. And so she goes to him, figures out what he's all about, and decides to help him. Like, she'd rather see that guy lose than this guy not win. And secrets are revealed, betrayals happen, but such a good story. Such a good story. I'm ready for Daughter of No Worlds. I'm ready for whatever Carissa Broadbent throws at me next, because so good. So, so good. And last but not least, we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. As you guys know, Abby Jimenez is an auto-buy author for me. I loved Part of Your World so much. So, so much. And then Yours Truly, we have a main character who deals with anxiety, and the female main character helps him deal with it, and it's so sweet and so cute. And then they have like this fake dating trope to get people off their backs, to get like people to stop trying to set them up, get people to stop like being so involved in their lives and meddling. It's like they just need to be left alone. So they start fake dating each other. However, our female main character is so understanding of our male main character's anxieties, and the way she handles them makes him feel so safe and so comforted that they start to really develop a relationship. Now, both of them are very scared of being in a relationship because of their past. And our male main character, his girlfriend left him for his brother. So part of the reason that he wants to fake date this girl is because he wants his brother to realize that he has moved on. The girl that they were both dating, he didn't care that she left, but he can't convince his brother of that because his brother's obviously in love with this girl, so she must be amazing. And he's like, but she's not. She left me for you, so don't care. But I loved everything about this book. I love everything about Abby Jimenez's writing, and I'm so looking forward to Just for the Summer. It's already on my current TBR, so I'm sure I will get to it very soon. All right, that is it for my video today. Like, subscribe. Don't forget I have a Patreon if you guys would like to support what I do on this channel. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.